The burger flipped on the grill as Marcus cracked another beer with his college buddies. His family's annual summer barbecue was in full swing. His mother, Patricia, was showing off her new patio furniture while his sister Victoria complained about her toddler's tantrums. I stood near the picnic table, holding a plate of potato salad I'd spent 3 hours making that morning. "When are you two finally giving us grandkids?" Patricia called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. The conversation stopped. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward us. Marcus took a long drink from his beer and laughed. "Well, not everyone's wife comes with working parts, Mom. Mine's defective." The laughter started small, then spread. His brother Tyler slapped his knee. Victoria covered her mouth but her shoulders shook. Even Patricia chuckled before catching herself. I stood there, my fingers white around the edges of the plate. The potato salad suddenly looked like it belonged in the trash. My face burned hot, but I forced my lips into something resembling a smile. "Excuse me," I whispered, setting the plate down carefully. "I need to use the restroom." Nobody tried to stop me. I locked the bathroom door and leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection. Mascara was already starting to run. My hands shook as I gripped the porcelain edge. Defective. Working parts. Those words echoed in my head like a cruel song I couldn't stop hearing. The tears came hard and fast. I pressed a hand over my mouth to muffle the sobs. Through the small window, I could hear them laughing again outside, their voices carrying like nothing had happened. How did I become this person? The woman who let her husband humiliate her in front of his entire family? The woman who smiled and excused herself instead of throwing that potato salad in his smirking face? I stared at my red eyes in the mirror. My name is Allison Carter. I'm 41 years old. And I just realized I'm done being the punchline of my own life. But they didn't know something important. Something I'd buried so deep I sometimes forgot it myself. A secret from 18 years ago that would change everything. I dried my eyes and reapplied my makeup with steady hands. When I walked back outside, I was already planning. I was 23 when the doctor gave me the news. Fresh out of college, newly married to Marcus, and terrified in a paper gown that crinkled every time I moved. The surgery had been necessary after years of painful complications. I'd known something was wrong, but hearing it out loud made it real. "I'm sorry, Allison," Dr. Hammond said, her voice gentle. "The damage was extensive. Natural conception will likely be impossible." Marcus sat beside me in the cold examination room. He squeezed my hand and said all the right things. "It doesn't matter. We have each other. That's enough." I believed him. God, I actually believed him. The first year, he meant it. We talked about adoption. Maybe fostering. We had time to figure it out. But somewhere between year 2 and year 3, his words started changing. The warmth in his eyes when he looked at me began to fade. "If only you could give me a reason to rush home," he said one morning over coffee. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Nothing. Just a joke." But his smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. That was when the cracks started showing. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been pregnant before. Years before I ever met him. I was 17. Small town. Strict Catholic parents who valued reputation more than compassion. When I told them I was pregnant, my father's face turned purple with rage. "You'll ruin this family," he hissed. "We've worked too hard for our name to be dragged through the mud by your mistake." 3 weeks later, I was in a hospital 2 towns over, signing adoption papers in a gown identical to the one I'd wear 6 years later for my infertility diagnosis. The social worker was kind but firm. "It's a closed adoption. No contact. That's what's best for everyone." I held my baby for exactly 4 minutes before they took him away. A boy. With my nose and my grandmother's dark curls. I never told anyone. Not my friends. Not the baby's father, who'd moved away the week he found out. And definitely not Marcus. It was my secret, buried so deep I convinced myself it had happened to someone else. By year 5 of our marriage, Marcus had sharpened his words into weapons. He knew exactly where to cut. You wouldn't understand, he said when I tried to comfort him about his stressful work project. You're not a mother. You don't get what responsibility feels like. I was managing the household budget, cooking his meals, handling his mother's demands, and working part-time at the library. But apparently, that wasn't real responsibility. You'll never understand motherhood, he said another time, his voice casual, like he was commenting on the weather. I started writing them down. Every comment. Every insult disguised as concern. I filled a small notebook with dated entries. I didn't know why I was documenting everything. Maybe for proof. Maybe so I wouldn't gaslight myself into thinking I'd imagined the cruelty. The notebook sat in my nightstand drawer, growing fuller by the month. Each page was evidence of the man Marcus had become. Or maybe the man he'd always been, just better at hiding it before. Her name was Heather. 29 years old. Worked in Marcus's accounting firm. I found out when a credit card statement arrived with charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Business dinner, Marcus said when I asked. His tie was loosened, and he smelled like perfume I didn't own. New client. Heather came along to take notes. At 9 p.m. on a Saturday? I asked. It's called networking, Allison. Maybe if you had a real career, you'd understand. There it was again. The casual cruelty wrapped in condescension. He kissed my forehead and went upstairs to shower. The perfume smell lingered for a week on his clothes, even after I washed them. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started paying closer attention. The late nights. The secretive phone calls. The way he angled his screen away when I walked into the room. I wasn't stupid. I was just deciding how much proof I needed before I made my move. Patricia made her opinion clear during Sunday dinner at their house. Marcus had gone to get more wine from the garage, leaving me alone with his mother and sister. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers, Patricia said, arranging cookies on a plate. It's not your fault, dear. It's just how God made you. Victoria nodded sympathetically. At least Marcus isn't leaving you. My friend's husband divorced her for the same reason. You're lucky he's loyal. Lucky. I was lucky my husband stayed with me while openly mocking my infertility and sleeping with someone else. Lucky that his family blamed my body instead of his character. I smiled and took another cookie. I'm very fortunate, I said, the words tasting like poison. The humiliation was constant. At every family gathering, there were comments. Suggestions. Thinly veiled insults packaged as concern. And always, the underlying message that I was defective and should be grateful Marcus tolerated my brokenness. I ate my cookie slowly and planned my exit in silence. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank across town. Nothing dramatic. Just started depositing small amounts from my library paychecks. I got a P.O. box for mail I didn't want Marcus seeing. I met with a divorce attorney named Angela Price who listened to my story without judgment. Do you have documentation? She asked. I showed her the notebook. 18 months of dated entries. Screenshots of suspicious transactions. Photos of receipts that didn't match his stories. This is good, Angela said. Very good. When you're ready, we'll have everything we need. I wasn't ready yet. I needed one more thing. I needed to know for certain about Heather. I needed proof he couldn't talk his way out of. So I waited. I gathered. I documented everything with the careful precision of someone who'd been underestimated for too long. Marcus thought I was too broken to fight back. His family thought I was too grateful to complain. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Plain white envelope. Handwritten address. No return information. I opened it while folding laundry, expecting junk mail. Instead, I found 3 handwritten pages that made my legs give out. I sat down hard on the bedroom floor. Hi. I think you're my birth mother. My name is Daniel. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. He'd found me. After 18 years, my son had found me. He wrote about his adoptive parents, who'd told him he was adopted when he was 12. About his search through adoption registries. About finally getting my information through new state laws that had opened previously sealed records. I don't want to disrupt your life, he wrote. But I've thought about you every birthday. I just want to know you're okay. And maybe, if you're willing, I'd like to meet you. I sobbed into the clean laundry. Joy and grief and 18 years of buried pain all rushing out at once. My son. My beautiful boy had grown up and come looking for me. We met at a small coffee shop 30 miles from my house. I got there 20 minutes early, my hands shaking around a cup of tea I couldn't drink. When Daniel walked in, I knew him instantly. He had my nose. My grandmother's dark curls. His father's height. He was studying law at the state university. Smart. Kind. Absolutely beautiful. We sat across from each other, both nervous, both smiling through tears. You were just a kid, he said after I'd explained everything. 17. Scared. I don't blame you for anything. I had good parents. A good life. I thought about you every single day, I whispered. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Wondering if you were happy. I was, he said. I am. And I'm so glad I found you. For the first time in years, I felt like a mother. Not broken. Not defective. Just a woman who'd made an impossible choice at 17 and somehow produced this incredible young man sitting across from me. We talked for 3 hours. When we hugged goodbye, I held on tight, breathing in the reality of him. Meeting Daniel changed something fundamental in me. I started therapy. Started journaling again. I remembered who I'd been before Marcus convinced me I was nothing. I looked at myself differently now. Not as damaged goods. Not as the barren wife everyone pitied. I was a woman who'd survived teenage pregnancy and forced adoption. Who'd built a life despite infertility. Who'd endured years of emotional abuse while quietly gathering strength. I started making plans. Real plans. Not just escape plans, but plans for what came after. Daniel and I met for coffee every week. We texted daily. He made me laugh. Made me remember that being a mother wasn't about biology or cooking dinner or having a husband who respected you. It was about love. And I had it. I'd always had it. Marcus noticed I was different. You're acting strange, he said one evening. What's going on with you? Nothing, I said, smiling. Just trying to be better. He looked suspicious but didn't push. He was too distracted by Heather to pay real attention anyway. The credit card statement arrived in my P.O. box. Marcus had been careless, putting my name as a secondary user without my knowledge. There were charges I didn't recognize. Jewelry stores. Hotels. Expensive restaurants. All while he'd been telling me we needed to save money. I photographed every page. Sent copies to Angela. This wasn't just adultery anymore. This was financial fraud. He opened accounts in your name? Angela asked during our meeting. Without my permission. Maxed them out on his girlfriend. That's identity theft, she said, making notes. This changes everything. We can file criminal charges if you want. I didn't want him in jail. I just wanted him to understand exactly what he'd done. What he'd lost. I wanted him to feel every bit of the humiliation he'd put me through. Let's keep that as an option, I said. For now, I want to serve him. Publicly. I want everyone to see. Angela smiled. I have the perfect plan. Marcus's birthday fell on a Saturday. He expected his usual party. Dinner at his favorite steakhouse with his family. Presents. Attention. I made the reservation weeks in advance. Told everyone to come. Even bought him a nice watch that I had wrapped professionally. We arrived at 6 p.m. Patricia and Victoria were already there. Tyler showed up with his wife. The private room in the back was decorated with balloons. Marcus was beaming. You really did all this for me? Of course, I said, kissing his cheek. You deserve everything that's coming to you. At 6:30, during appetizers, a man in a suit walked into the private room. He approached our table with a manila envelope. "Marcus Carter?" he asked. "Yeah." Marcus looked confused. "You've been served." He placed the envelope on the table next to Marcus's drink and left. The room went completely silent. Marcus opened the envelope with shaking hands. His face went from red to white in seconds as he read the divorce papers. He looked up at me, his mouth opening and closing without sound. I smiled. "Happy birthday, honey." The papers were thorough. Angela had done beautiful work. Every instance of emotional abuse documented. Every suspicious transaction highlighted. Photos of receipts. Screenshots of messages I'd found on his laptop when he left it unlocked. And there, in black and white, the fraud charges. Credit cards opened in my name. Debts I didn't create. All spelled out in legal language that couldn't be explained away. "You've been planning this," Marcus whispered, his voice shaking. "This whole time, you've been planning this." "Yes," I said calmly. "While you were planning your future with Heather, I was planning mine without you." Patricia gasped. "Heather? Who's Heather?" "His assistant," I said. "The one he's been sleeping with for the past year." Check page 7. There are hotel receipts. Victoria grabbed the papers from Marcus and started reading. Her expression shifted from shock to disgust. Tyler just shook his head. "Man, what did you do?" Marcus looked at me with something close to panic. "We can talk about this. This isn't how you handle marriage problems." "You're right," I said. "You should have talked to me before you called me defective in front of your entire family." The divorce proceedings were brutal, but I was prepared for every attack. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive. Unstable. A woman who couldn't handle her husband's success. Angela destroyed them with documentation. The notebook with dated entries. Character witnesses from the library where I worked. Financial records showing Marcus's deception. "Your client opened credit cards in my client's name," Angela said calmly. "That's identity theft. We have evidence of adultery. Of systematic emotional abuse. This isn't vindictive. This is self-preservation." The judge reviewed everything with a stern expression. She'd seen enough bad divorces to know genuine abuse when she saw it. Marcus tried to play the victim. Said I'd trapped him in a loveless marriage. That my infertility had destroyed our relationship. I sat quietly beside Angela, my hands folded in my lap, and let the evidence speak for itself. "Mr. Carter," the judge finally said, "I find your behavior during this marriage to be reprehensible. The financial fraud alone warrants criminal investigation." Marcus's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. They were worried. Good. They should be. Patricia called me 3 days after the court hearing. Her voice was different. Smaller somehow. "Do you really need to destroy his life like this?" she asked. "He made mistakes. We all make mistakes." I took a deep breath. "You were fine when he was destroying mine." "That's not fair," she protested. "I didn't know it was that bad." "You laughed when he called me defective," I said quietly. "You sat in your backyard and laughed at me. You told me I wasn't meant to be a mother. You made me feel less than human for something I couldn't control." Silence on the other end of the line. "He's your son, Patricia. I understand you want to protect him. But I'm done being the person everyone sacrifices to keep your family comfortable." "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did. And you never apologized. None of you did. You just expected me to keep smiling and taking it." I hung up before she could respond. I didn't owe her comfort anymore. I didn't owe any of them anything. Marcus showed up at my apartment on a Wednesday evening. I'd moved out while he was at work, taking only what was mine. He'd come home to an empty house and a note with my new address for legal correspondence. Through the peephole, I saw him standing there with grocery store flowers and red eyes. I opened the door but didn't let him in. "Allison, please," he said. "I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll change. No, I said simply. Don't I at least deserve a chance to make this right? I looked at him carefully. This man I'd loved for 18 years. This man who'd chipped away at my self-worth piece by piece while I made his dinner and smiled through his mother's insults. You didn't make mistakes, Marcus. You made choices. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to commit fraud. You chose Heather. You chose all of it. Now I'm choosing myself. I never stopped loving you, he said desperately. Love isn't supposed to hurt like this, I replied. Goodbye, Marcus. I closed the door in his face and locked it. Through the wood, I heard him crying. Eventually, his footsteps faded away. The next court date was different. This time, someone sat beside me in the gallery. A young man with my nose and my grandmother's curls. Daniel had offered to come. You stood up for me when you were just 17, he'd said. Let me stand up for you now. When Marcus walked in with his lawyer, he froze. His eyes went from me to Daniel and back again. I saw the moment he understood. The way his face changed. The calculation happening behind his eyes. Who is that? His lawyer whispered. I don't know, Marcus lied. But he did know. He could see the resemblance. Could see my smile on Daniel's face. Could see everything he'd called me incapable of sitting right there in a courtroom suit. During a break, Daniel introduced himself to Marcus. Hi. I'm Daniel. Allison's son. Marcus's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Son? Yeah. She had me when she was 17. Gave me up for adoption. I found her 6 months ago. She's an amazing mother. The word mother hung in the air like a weapon. Everything Marcus had said about me being defective, being incapable, being broken, crumbled in that single moment. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. The judge awarded me the house, my separate accounts, and compensation for the fraudulent credit cards. Marcus got his business debts, his reputation in ruins, and a stern warning about the identity theft charges I'd agreed not to pursue if he complied with the settlement. You're getting off easy, the judge told him. Mrs. Carter would be within her rights to press criminal charges. Marcus signed everything without argument. He was broken now. No longer the confident man who'd laughed at me in his mother's backyard. I walked out of the courthouse with Daniel beside me. The spring air felt clean. Everything felt lighter somehow. How do you feel? Daniel asked. Free, I said honestly. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. We went to lunch to celebrate. Not at some fancy restaurant, just a diner near campus where Daniel liked to study. We ordered burgers and talked about his upcoming finals. This was what family felt like. This was what love was supposed to be. Simple. Kind. Unconditional. Heather left Marcus exactly 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. I found out through Victoria, who'd reached out to apologize and somehow ended up keeping me updated on Marcus's downward spiral. Apparently, Heather had been expecting the wealthy lifestyle Marcus had promised. The nice house. The financial security. When she realized he had neither anymore, she disappeared. She posted about him on social media. Nothing explicit, just vague references to users and liars. But everyone who knew them understood. Marcus's reputation at work suffered. The scandal of the divorce, the fraud allegations, the office affair, all of it combined into a professional disaster. Victoria said he'd become withdrawn. Stopped showing up to family dinners. Patricia was worried about him, but even she admitted he'd brought it on himself. I'm sorry we treated you that way, Victoria said during one of our coffee meetings. I see it now. How cruel we all were. Thank you, I said. That means something. She paused. For what it's worth, Daniel seems wonderful. You should be proud. I am, I said, smiling. I really am. Marcus filed for bankruptcy 6 months after the divorce. The business debts had caught up with him. Without my careful financial management, he'd made poor choices that collapsed his firm. He moved back in with Patricia. a 46-year-old man living in his childhood bedroom. According to Victoria, he spent most of his time there, avoiding friends, avoiding family gatherings. I didn't take pleasure in his suffering. I didn't celebrate his failures. I just felt relieved that his problems weren't mine anymore. Meanwhile, my life was rebuilding beautifully. I'd gotten promoted to head librarian. Daniel and I had dinner twice a week. I'd even started dating someone, nothing serious yet, just coffee dates with a kind professor who made me laugh. One Saturday, Daniel and I drove to the coast. We walked barefoot on the beach, the sand cool beneath our feet, the sound of waves drowning out everything else. "I'm proud of you," Daniel said suddenly. "For standing up for yourself. For building this new life." I squeezed his hand. "For the first time in years, I'm proud of me too." The library hosted a fundraiser gala that fall. I wore a blue dress that made me feel confident. Daniel came as my guest, dressed in a suit that made him look so grown up I almost cried. We were standing by the refreshment table when Marcus walked in. He'd been invited months ago, back when we were still married, and he'd served on the library board. He looked terrible. Thinner. Gray at the temples. The confident swagger completely gone. Our eyes met across the room. He started walking toward me, but Daniel stepped slightly forward, a protective gesture that was subtle but clear. Marcus stopped. He looked at Daniel, then at me, then down at his shoes. "Allison," he said quietly. "You look happy." "I am," I replied simply. "That's good. That's really good." He paused. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know." I studied him. This broken version of the man who'd once made me feel worthless. I could see the regret in his eyes. The genuine pain. "I appreciate that," I said. "I hope you find peace, Marcus." "I really do." He nodded and walked away. Daniel exhaled beside me. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "I really am." Winter came gently that year. Daniel graduated with his law degree. I sat in the audience with his adoptive parents, Karen and Thomas, who'd welcomed me into their family with open hearts. "You gave us an incredible gift," Karen told me, squeezing my hand during the ceremony. "But you're not losing him by finding him. There's enough room in his life for all of us." When Daniel walked across that stage, I cried. Happy tears. Proud tears. Tears for the 17-year-old girl who'd signed those papers and never imagined she'd see this moment. After the ceremony, Daniel found me in the crowd. He hugged me tight. "Thank you for choosing adoption," he whispered. "And thank you for being brave enough to be in my life now." We took family photos together. All of us. His two moms, his dad, and later, my new boyfriend Cameron, who'd become a permanent fixture in my life. This was family. Messy, complicated, beautiful family. Nothing like the cruel parody I'd endured with Marcus. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and new beginnings. I hosted a small dinner party at my house, the house I'd fought for and won. Daniel brought his girlfriend. Cameron brought wine. Karen and Thomas brought dessert. We laughed over pasta and salad. Told stories. Made plans for summer. At one point, I looked around the table at these people who'd become my chosen family. The son I'd never stopped loving. The partner who made me feel valued. The friends who accepted me completely. "Thank you all," I said suddenly, raising my glass. "For reminding me what love is supposed to feel like." They raised their glasses back. Daniel smiled at me across the table, that smile that still took my breath away. Later, while doing dishes, Cameron asked, "Do you ever regret how everything happened?" I thought about it carefully. I regret the years I wasted being small for someone else. But the ending? No. I needed to get here somehow. And now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He kissed my temple. Good answer. 2 years after that backyard barbecue where Marcus called me defective, I stood in the same library where I'd once hidden from my problems. But now I was launching my own program, helping women navigate life transitions. Daniel attended the opening event. So did Cameron. Several women from my divorce support group. Even Victoria came, genuinely supportive now. During my speech, I talked about feeling broken. About being told you're less than human because your body doesn't work the way others expect. About finding strength in unexpected places. I was called barren, I said, looking directly at the audience. But that word never defined me. I brought an incredible person into this world. I survived situations that could have destroyed me. I built a life I'm proud of. I'm not barren. I'm abundant. The applause was warm and genuine. After the event, a young woman approached me. She was crying. My husband says the same things, she whispered. That I'm broken. Defective. I took her hands gently. You're not broken. Your situation might be broken. But you're whole. And you deserve someone who sees that. She hugged me tight. I held her and thought about 17-year-old me. About 23-year-old me. About the woman at that barbecue who finally stopped smiling through the pain. Marcus had tried to make me small. Instead, he'd shown me exactly how strong I'd always been. And now I was helping other women find that same strength. I wasn't barren. I never had been. I was becoming whole.